In the previous tutorials, we covered the basics of player setup. In this tutorial, you'll learn how to manage a player network and apply advanced device settings either remotely or manually. First, open BrightAuthor Connected and navigate to the Network tab. On the right is the Properties pane. If you're a free BSN.Cloud Control Cloud only subscriber, or your players are configured to use standalone, LFN, SFN, or a partner CMS, the usefulness of the Properties pane is limited. Only BSN.Cloud Content Cloud subscribers can change the name, description, and other player settings within the Properties pane. If you're a Control Cloud only subscriber, you can access these settings during initial setup, and I'll cover this in a moment. Assuming you are a BSN.Cloud Content Cloud subscriber, when you expand the Overview arrow, you'll see some basic information about the player. First, you can choose the player's target group. At the moment, you probably only have one device in your network, and the target group is likely set to default. As your network expands, you can organize players into separate groups. When you publish to a group, all the players in that group will begin to display the same presentation. Under Overview, you can see the player's time zone, OS, auto run, subscription type, and status. Expanding device configuration and checking Enable Diagnostic Web Server enables your player to access this feature from a local network. Players activated on BSN.Cloud can leave this unchecked in most cases, as we will discuss in more detail in a moment. Enabling logging tracks a player's performance throughout the day and can help with troubleshooting if necessary. Each box enables the various logs. We recommend only checking the logs you specifically need. For example, you may want to know how many times a button is pressed. You can accomplish this by enabling Event Logging. If the player is equipped with a Wi-Fi module and you enabled wireless during player setup, you can modify Wi-Fi settings here. For connection priority, in most situations where both a wired and wireless connection is present, wired priority is usually preferred, but it's up to you. The advanced wired and wireless network settings look nearly identical but pertain to the different connection methods. Under both wired and wireless, users can specify a static IP address, limit download network traffic, and specify the data types a player can accept. To apply a static IP, you'll need to register the player on your network and enter its information here. By default, the player will attempt to attain an IP address automatically. Limiting network download traffic is a little tricky because there are several options, but most people will want to stick to the default limit right here and select an unlimited download rate during initial downloads. That will allow first-time presentations to be published to players without being throttled, but subsequent updates like playlists and feeds to be limited. For all you data nerds out there, the default rate is 2000 kilobits per second, which is equal to a quarter megabyte per second, or about one high-res JPEG photo per second. Location reveals the player's IP geolocation information. Under Downloads, you can review the latest files sent to the player. Below that shows a log of recent errors. Under Security, you can set roles and permissions. And tags are a secondary way to organize players. Because the player is activated on BSN.Cloud, you can access the player remotely. Even the free version of BSN.Cloud, the Control Cloud, lets you check the status of a device and control a variety of player settings from anywhere, regardless of the device type. For example, you could set up a standalone player, but by activating it via BSN.Cloud, you can check to make sure that the player is functioning properly from the Network tab. To access a player, click the cog icon next to the device. Under the Info tab, you can see some stats about the player. If you click the clock icon, you can update the time of the player. You can set it to the clock on your computer by clicking the Use Client Time button, or set the clock manually. Clicking the Refresh button will update the UI with the current player information. It's important to note that when you access these features, you are actually connecting to the player in real time. Next, click on the Log tab. Here you can see a log of all the most recent actions that have occurred on the player. The top of the log is the oldest information, and the bottom of the log is the most current. You can refresh the log to see the most current actions taking place on the player as well. These logs can be helpful when you're troubleshooting. Under Control, you can reboot and reset a player. If you're a Control Cloud subscriber, the recovery URL will be left blank. For Content Cloud subscribers, if your SD card fails and you need to replace it, the recovery process will initiate automatically from this URL, so leave it as it is. Here you can turn on and off the local DWS. As discussed earlier, because you can connect to the player remotely via bsn.cloud, most users will want to turn off the local DWS, which shares a similar feature set. This will help make the device even more secure. And lastly, if you've applied new setup files to a player, you can re-provision the device by pressing Update. For expert power users, under the SD tab, you can actually edit files that reside on your SD card. For example, it's possible to swap out a video or a photo, or even edit code here without republishing a whole presentation. But as discussed, this section is for super geek power users, and it's usually best to make changes to the presentation in BrightAuthor Connected and then publish the updated version from there. In the Diagnostics tab, you can view the network configuration, look up a DNS, ping an IP, trace the root of an IP address, view the network neighborhood information, save the network packet capture, disable the auto run, and format the SD card. Now click on the Snapshot tab and click New Snapshot. This will take a screenshot of what's currently being displayed from the player. You can click on the thumbnail to see the image in full resolution and drag the image to your desktop to save it. Under the Video tab, you can change the screen resolution of your player and enable Power Save mode. These features can be useful for diagnostic purposes and in some special circumstances, but it's important to program resolution and display commands within your presentation for most practical applications. Lastly, the Advanced tab allows you to view the registry dump and update the operating system of the player. Viewing the registry dumps are useful for advanced users, network administrators, and BrightSign support. Updating the player's operating system directly from BrightAuthor is a powerful new tool. The custom URL is a manual way to update a player with a specific BrightSign OS, mainly used in collaboration with our support team. Even if a device is not activated through bsn.cloud, you can still access these advanced settings the old school way by creating new setup files and adding them to a player. To do this, navigate to the Admin tab and select Device Setup. First, enter in the basic device settings on the left-hand side. This includes the name of the package, the device name, and optional description. This is also where you select the device type. Remember, the device type determines how the device is programmed to receive new information. On the right are the Advanced Device Settings. Many of these features were covered earlier in this video, so I'll focus on the ones that are different. Under Device Configuration, enabling the local diagnostic web server activates a similar set of controls as the Network tab, but access is limited to your local network, instead of being able to access the player from anywhere using bsn.cloud servers. If you keep the local diagnostic web server checked, it's a good idea to add a password for added security. The username of the local diagnostic web server is admin. Checking Enable Local Web Server is necessary for some interactive presentations because it allows your player to receive user variables. Players with this feature enabled can be set up to accept commands from external devices like a web browser or a smartphone app. This feature also needs to be enabled for players that connect via local file networking and is checked for those players by default. For added security, it's a good idea to add a username and password here as well. Enabling update notifications is an optional feature that automatically refreshes the user variable web page whenever values change on the player. If you have logging enabled here, you can view logs in the current log folder on the player's SD card. Or if you're setting up a device to connect via simple file networking, you can specify a relative URL for the log handler to send the logs. Your player can do this at startup or at a specified time. A setup file can contain a BrightSign OS update as well. To update a device, select your player model and specify the BrightSign OS release that you would like to apply. Most users will want to select Standard as the update type. Enabling Remote Snapshot here records images of the player's output at specified intervals. You can also specify the number of images to save. The player will automatically delete the oldest images once it reaches its maximum. You can also adjust the JPEG quality and orientation. Please note that even if you don't enable Remote Snapshot here, BSN.Cloud subscribers can view remote snapshots on demand. If you select Include Network Configuration and press the Network Option button, this will open a window where you can set a variety of parameters. Under the Player tab, you can specify a hostname, use a proxy server, and limit content downloads. If your player has a Wi-Fi module installed, you can enable wireless. Notice how the wireless tab is no longer grayed out when you activate wireless. Some networks require certification, which can be applied here. Just like in the Properties pane, the wired and wireless tabs are nearly identical except for the fields for wireless credentials. Let's discuss limiting download contents for a moment through a real-world example. From the Player tab, a business can set a content download window to their regular business hours. The business wants to make sure that big files don't get pushed to players during business hours when bandwidth is in high demand, but they still want the player to periodically receive photos and text and weather updates throughout the day. The business might decide to limit traffic during the download window, business hours, to default 2000 kilobits per second, and set the bandwidth outside of the window, after hours, to unlimited. Under the Diagnostic tab, checking Enable Network Diagnostic enables the player to display the Network Diagnostic screen on boot up. Checking the Test Ethernet, Test Wireless, and Test Internet boxes adds those additional diagnostic tests and then displays their status when the player boots up. The player will keep rebooting until it passes the specified tests, so in general, only use it for testing purposes and then turn it off in production environments. If the device was never activated on BSN.Cloud, meaning there's no provisioning record of your device, you can save the setup files directly to the player's SD card. You can update the player with the new setup files by inserting the SD card into the player and then rebooting it. If your players are activated on BSN.Cloud, go ahead and add the setup files to the library for later use, because you can access most of these advanced settings in real time from the Network tab. Thanks for watching this tutorial on network management and advanced player settings.